I am Kim Henderson with Cobalt Compass, and today we're going to talk a little bit about client retention and building client loyalty and kind of take it into a 10-step plan, right? So I guess I'd like to ask many of you, do we all have this feeling over the past couple of years that staffing companies have been hyper-focused on really getting candidates and retaining their employees? I think many of us would admit that we're guilty as charged because that's kind of what the market was bearing at that point in time. What I'd say is I think many of us became de facto order takers in staffing and maybe ignored that client side a little bit too much. As we go through this, I'm going to definitely ask you some questions, and you can type those in the chat, and we'll hopefully be able to marry back around at the end and answer those. And we're also going to kind of go through some examples of some poor customer service things that we probably encounter in our daily life, right? Like, we're all consumers and we all are out there and see examples of good customer service and retention and some bad examples that we experience. With that, just a quick background on me. I've been in staffing since 1993. I worked for two staffing companies in that tenure. I was on the exec team of a national company for staffing and also a global company. Their US business was on their exec team as well. And now I provide training and consulting services in support of the staffing industry. So with that, let's move on into the presentation. And again, we're going to kind of go through a 10-step plan of things that we can do today that are actually, no cost or very minimal cost to kind of shore up that client and get that loyalty that we're looking for. Because let's face it, the economy is sending some mixed signals. And, even if we head into a recession, we're going to need to shore up that base. But even if we don't, right, there's nothing more important than retaining the customers that we have, right? There's an old joke out there that's acquiring one new customer. And the answer to that is it's kind of a trick question. It's not acquiring a new customer. It's actually keeping the ones that we have that's more important, right? Okay, so let's take a look at the presentation. Can everyone hopefully see what we have here? All right. Okay. I don't know if anyone was aware of this, but increasing client retention rates by only 5% can increase your profits between 25 and 95%. And that's a startling statistic. And why is that, you might ask, right? Well, in industry after industry, they've shown the high cost of acquiring customers can often render customer relationships really unprofitable during the early years, right? And it's only when we have our customers for quite an amount of time that the cost of servicing them goes down and the volume of their purchases rise, right? So the bottom line is, it takes some time, but increasing that retention by only 5% can get your profits up between 25 and 95%. So taking that one step further, not only is it, tedious and sometimes a little arduous to acquire new clients, it's also more expensive, right? It could be 5 to 25 times more expensive to go and get a new customer. And you may ask, well, why is that? But think about every time the cycles that you burn bringing on a new client. So it's things like the front end sales and prospecting and the presenting that we do to go and gain a new customer. Back office, training our back office how to service a customer, onboarding, the learning curve, all that type of thing for AMs and recruiters to go and get proficient at working with a new customer. So there's a lot of things that go in and around that. So key to keep them, if we can keep them and make them real and make them profitable. So let's talk for a minute about the differences and how things are intertwined between customer loyalty and customer retention, right? So does anyone out there know the difference between loyalty and retention? Has anyone actually kind of pondered that? So I bet some of you definitely have. It's hard, to think just because your customers are buying from you doesn't necessarily mean that you've got a great product or you've got a great service, right? So look at it this way. Every time you walk into a car dealership to buy a new car, obviously things are changing because you've got, disruptors like Carvana out there. But every time you walk into a dealership, it's not necessarily that they have a great product and you really want to go in there. You know that you have to deal with them to get that new car. So don't think because someone's buying from you, they're necessarily loyal, right? So look at it in terms of loyalty is going to measure how satisfied they are with their brand experience, right? How likely are they to promote you to other people? Are they going to promote you and be the evangelist and advocate for you out in the marketplace? That's ultimately what you want, right? Loyalty also analyzes the satisfaction rates in relation to your repeat sales. And ultimately, with loyalty, what we want is the ability to gain the loyalty where we can easily cross-sell, right? Many of us do IT, F&A, healthcare, pharmaceutical. We want to be able to upsell. We want to be able to get those volume deals, right? And ultimately get exclusivity. So client loyalty is actually, it's about growth, okay? And retention, more or less, is ultimately, it's going to measure the transaction. It's going to focus on maintaining the revenue and actually preventing a lot of that lost revenue, okay? So the first way in our 10-step program, the first thing we can do to gain that client loyalty is, number one, we've got to be collecting feedback, right? It's hard to improve your business if you don't even know how your customers feel about it. Okay, you're kind of making decisions in a vacuum. Do you agree with that? How many of you are currently today collecting client feedback and doing it and have a process for it and actually do it on a certain frequency and then actually share that feedback with the organization? So I see some people are and some people aren't. So first, determine the tool you want to use, right? There's a myriad of tools out there, a lot of different surveys, things from SurveyMonkey to scorecards, Net Promoter Score. And I'd say, how many of you right now are utilizing your client scorecards? Those are really golden if you can get them. And when the client shares a scorecard with you of your quarterly performance, it's a great opportunity to understand what you're doing well and where you need to improve. But conversely, all clients are not perfect as well, right? You know, we can share with them how they can partner with us better. So whether it's surveys, feedbacks, pick your tool and then pick your process and your frequency for it, right? Analyze the results. Look for the trends, right, that you're seeing on these surveys in terms of customer behavior, right? Where can you enhance your service, right? Where are there opportunities for you? So as you look, are customers clamoring for something? Is there something that they need that you're not providing? And you'll start to spot trends. So look for opportunities of things that you can do and provide to them from a service standpoint that you haven't been doing. And then conversely, you know, let's say there is a deficiency, there is a problem. Create an action plan so you can go and correct it, fix it, and ensure that things are actually working, right? You know, can't speak volumes about if you don't collect your client feedback and know what's going right and what's not going right, you're really operating kind of with blinders on. So establish a process, establish a frequency, and pick a tool for it, okay? So also, ask for the client feedback from all of the buyers that are using your services, right? You know, we may fall into that trap of just going to the VP of IT or the VP of the Chief Nursing Officer or the CFO. And, you know, what's wrong with that? You know, I'd ask you to type in your chat. Just because one person has an opinion that your service is great, others may not. So go to all the buyers using your service and solicit their feedback from, you know, the user buyer to the economic buyer, the person writing the check, to that technical buyer that could be the VP of procurement or the VP of HR. They're all going to come at it from a different perspective and from a different vantage point, right? So go ahead and get that feedback from all the buyers, if that makes sense. A second way to go get our client loyalty numbers up is analyzing our turnover metrics. So while it may not sound fun or glamorous, you know, think about it. We've had a lot of customers over the course of the years that potentially have left us, right? We need to track and analyze who's leaving and no longer buying our services and the reasons behind that. And I think what we'll find is we've got patterns, right? There's patterns out there of things that maybe we need to improve. Maybe we're having back office trouble. Maybe we're having recruiting trouble, whatever it is. Analyzing the turnover metrics is something we really should do, and understanding the reasons behind the churn rate. Conversely, if we leave a client, how many of you out there have actually parted ways with a client proactively and said, hey, we just can't be a good business partner to you? Yeah, I see probably a lot of people have done that. We need to track why they're not a match for a model if we turn a customer away. And then ultimately, we want to revisit that because let's face it, things change. You know, Somebody that wasn't a good client match for us 3 years ago could be a great match for us now. Rates change, business models change, people change. So really always evaluate why people are leaving us and then why we leave clients, right? And it's things we should definitely revisit. And then ultimately, I think in staffing, sometimes we can get a little lazy on this, but documenting in our CRM system, right? Bullhorn has an amazing system for this, keeping a detailed history of clients that have left us, clients that we're struggling with, whatever that may be, that we document it. So every time we walk into a conversation with them, we know what's happened in the past and we can speak to it, right? It makes us more efficient at what we do. And then ultimately, let's face it, sometimes our account managers, we may have turnover. The last thing we want is a new individual stepping into a client situation and not having the facts and data and a history behind them. So turnover metrics are really key and putting things in our system, right, to review it. The third piece of building some client loyalty is, personally, I think the days of being the generalist are gone, right? Trying to be that jack of all trades where we are everything and nothing to people, to our clients, is really not getting us anywhere. We really need to become a student of whatever their industry is. We need to really educate ourselves to it and understand, what are the challenges, right, that they have in regulation or legislation or specific nuances to their industry, so that we can actually have conversations with them that are meaningful, right? There's no value in calling someone going, hey, how are you doing, Bob? We want to understand what's going on in the industry. So for instance, right, healthcare has specific regulations that are impacting it all the time. So does manufacturing. So does Department of Defense. So as an example, let's say you're selling IT services to a DoD integrator, right? It's very powerful to be able to say to that DoD integrator, gosh, we can find IT security people with clearances and we can hold those clearances. So again, customizing and tailoring what you do to their industry is going to speak volumes versus just being that generalist in staffing, right? So we want to customize it to their specific, whether it be their skill sets, their business issues, their industries, and show our ability to deliver outcomes. You're going to hear me say that a couple times. We need to show that we can deliver outcomes for them. And I think a great way to continue to do that is utilizing specific case studies and examples where we've worked with clients, other clients having similar issues in what we did. It's how many people are using case studies right out there. It doesn't have to be anything grand. It could be just a one-page, document where we're capturing this, but it's pretty powerful to say we were able to give a hospital system, 30 RN case managers that traveled or that were in remote areas, right? And they were able to go and perform their job with X, Y, and Z result. So again, making sure you have case studies to show that you've helped clients with similar issues and quantifying those results, right? So it's often been said that, a negative experience will stick with somebody for a long time. And, they're more likely to remember a negative experience they have with a staffing company or anybody versus a positive experience. So make certain that you can quantify the results that you've delivered, right? Let's say you've delivered 30 CPAs, for a project, or you delivered, 30 medical coders or clinical documentation specialists, and what that impact was to the client, right? The hospital increased revenue by those coders and their 95% accuracy. They reduced costs, or it was a successful IT project. Whatever it is, quantify the results that you've delivered so they understand that. And ultimately, it's what's in it for them, right? It's what's in it for the client. They want to know that you can continually solve their business issues. So with that, I think it's really positioning ourselves as a solutions provider, right? We all do staffing, various nuances, but we're a solution provider. We're not just a staffing company. We're not just a generalist. So that's really, I think, how we need to position ourselves to get that long-term loyalty and that long-term customer retention, right? Okay. Mapping out a consistent client experience. Wow, would everyone here agree? The consistency actually builds trust. When you don't have a process for something, what happens is, variation can kind of creep into the system and you start to deliver some really inconsistent outcomes client, right? So how many of you out there actually have, and be honest with yourself, built out a process for onboarding and launching new clients, right? Where you specifically identify all the actions, all the owners, and plan out a schedule and a timeline to go and launch a client where it's thoughtfully taken all the way from sales through the back office. So I would tell you, if you haven't, really consider doing that. It makes life a lot easier and it delivers a much better customer experience, right? It's almost like if you were to go out on a date with somebody for the first time and they were ill prepared and showed up at the wrong restaurant at the wrong time, right? So plan that schedule for launching a new customer, checking in, have those milestones so both you and the client know what the shared goals and the shared responsibilities are. It's basically, the client needs to realize that they're part of the process, right? And they want to feel part of the process. So generally, the more that we involve and engage them, it's going to reaffirm that human contact with them, that we're not just completely plug and play, right? And then also, it creates efficiencies. The client starts to gain insight on what to expect and when to expect it. And they become bought into working with us and bought into our process, right? And oftentimes, think of it this way. If someone's bought in to a process, people are going to support a world that they help build and they help create. So when we work through this process with them of what it's going to be like to work with us, and we set expectations and manage expectations, they're going to become vested, they're going to become bought in, and they're going to want to participate in it, right? So managing expectations probably goes without saying. That's a lot of what the process is. It's telling them early and often what's going to happen and what's not going to happen, right? They may believe that you can immediately deliver on a certain result when in reality, those results could be months down the road after a lot of time and a lot of resources. So again, no one in business likes surprises. And think about, again, you as a consumer, if you get someone was going to come out and repair your roof and the next thing you knew, it happened 2 months later and they brought the wrong material. If they'd mapped out a process for you, you would have understood and been bought into the fact that, hey, this is maybe going to take 2 months to happen. Think of it in terms of yourself. Clients are going to want to be part of that process and going to want to support it because they help build it with you. Okay. Number 5 probably goes without saying, but gosh, how many times in staffing and in general is it hard to get service? I mean, think about it. Every time, I'll use the airlines as an example. While we can do a lot of things online and do most things online or through their app, every now and again, there's just something that goes wrong and we need a human being. And we call into their call center, we sit on hold for 20 minutes, we get moved around. So be easy to do business with. Make it easy for someone to get service, right? Whoever it is, they want to get it quickly. They want it customized to their needs and they want to make it convenient. So whatever it is, structure it in a way that's going to answer their needs, right? And I think in staffing, oftentimes we say, gosh, we don't do it that way. This is our process, or, oh gosh, we're aligned this way. We're not aligned that way. Whatever it is, understand what process and what channels your customer wants to communicate through via, whether it's an app, whether it's texting, whether it's a phone, whether it's email. Understand how they want to communicate, how they want and answer that call and make it quick, make it customized, and make it convenient. There's no greater way to drive someone away than to make it hard to do business with, right? I think we'd all agree. Okay. The 6th one, I think I've heard this mentioned a couple of times today in various formats, but it's really key. And this is taught in a lot of different, sales training programs, but finding the customer pain and eliminating it. If you don't ask questions and listen to them on an ongoing basis, it's going to be hard to get any type of loyalty and retention out of them. If we don't know and understand their existing challenges and address them, it's going to be hard to keep them. And I think as seasoned staffers, we often assume we know what their problem is and we jump to like a conclusion way too quickly or solution too quickly. Is anyone guilty of that here? I think maybe we all have them from time to time. So we need to let them tell us in their own words, what are the issues that they're having, right? Whether it's their business, whether it's their department, the project, the team, it could be anything, right? The key there is take them on the journey to self-discovery of their own pain. If we tell them what their problem is and try to correct it, they're probably gonna rebuff that, right? But if we can go and ask them the questions, as an example, are they struggling to find talent in this labor market? How are resignations impacting them? How is the work getting done if they're short staffed? Are people working overtime? How long are they willing to wait? How are people working overtime? Is that impacting the team? So you see where I'm going with it. Lead them down the path of self-discovery through questioning. And then ultimately it'll help you understand better how to go and solve their problems continually and build that loyalty. So what we're trying to do is not become a staffing supplier or staffing vendor, or staffing generalist. We want to be that trusted advisor that solves their problems. And it's hard to solve their problems if we haven't listened and we haven't led them down that path to explain in their own words what they're experiencing. And they're experiencing a lot right now, right? It could be anything depending on their industry. Okay. So here's probably one of my favorite pieces of building client loyalty. And you may go, gosh, this almost looks like it benefits us and not them, but we'll walk through it. So we want to gain client share and become relevant and become significant to every customer that we have. And here's a question or example. How often times do we maybe place 15 contractors on assignment at a company or place 10 perm hires at a company and think we've done a great job? And then we look around and we start talking to our customer. We find out that our competition has double the amount of contractors on assignment, or placed, 35 perm people there last year and we placed 10. So I think we get into this comparing ourselves to ourselves and think we're doing a great job, when the question we really should be asking, is, really, what's our competition doing? How well are they doing? Do we understand the total piece of the pie? Do we understand the total staffing spend, total number of contractors or perm hires that they are going to hire in any given year, any given quarter, right? And what percentage do we have of that total spend? What client share do we have? We want to gain that client share and be able to provide them our full suite of services, right? And expand and penetrate the account. Because think about it, if we're servicing them in a lot of different areas, whether it be IT and FA, or all of IT, or all of the finance and accounting functions that they need, we become this critical business partner, and that solidifies our retention with them, because we're actually, in all areas of their business that we can be, and providing value to them. And I think along the lines of that too is, we're trying to work on the business with them, not necessarily completely in it, day in and day out. We need to know the client's definition of a top supplier, right? What do we have to do to earn the trust and earn their loyalty and earn their retention? And our definition of a top supplier could be one thing, theirs could be completely different. So that's something we always want to ask. What do we have to do to become a top supplier, or at least in the top two, so we can go and gain that loyalty and gain that retention? So key questions, everybody out there asking, what's your definition of a top supplier? What are the characteristics of that? Is everybody asking that? Hopefully so. Okay. So assuming, again, we're working with these individuals already, and I mentioned this earlier, we want to be able to highlight our tangible business results and outcomes they receive from using our service, right? We want to quantify the value and impact on their business and use some metrics to illustrate that. And again, it goes back to, they're busy, they're doing 100 different things on a day in, day out basis. They may not be aware of what we're accomplishing for them and what type of business results we're delivering to them. So it's incumbent on us to kind of check in with them and say, hey, we actually gave you those 30 case managers, RN case managers in Memphis, Tennessee. Here's what they did on assignment. Here's the business results that they received. And, by the way, here's the impact we've had on your business. Always understand what you're doing for them and be able to bring that up. It's almost like kind of celebrating the wins with them, because your customer may not have that at the top of their mind. They may not know that. They may anecdotally know it, but provide them some facts and some data to help solidify the fact that you are solving their business issues. Okay. So gaining relevance, greater client share means we're going to become less expendable, right? So if we are servicing them in all their different areas or many different areas, it's too hard to go and remove us from a supplier list because we're entrenched and entwined in their business. So we don't want to become expendable. We want to have that relevance and have that significance. And that comes with greater client share. So again, I implore you, don't look at your client as, gosh, I've got a job order, I need to fill a job order. While that's important, look at the big picture pieces and understand exactly what it takes to become a top supplier and go for client share and penetration and expansion within the account. And I think a lot of staffing companies miss the mark on that. A lot more impactful to say I've got 100 people on assignment than it is to say I have 15, right? So here's an interesting statistic as we kind of move into the next part of our 10-step plan. Only 19% of U.S. executive buyers believe that their time spent with salespeople is actually valuable and lives up to their expectations. So think about that. That's over 80% of the people out there that we buyers, and call it staffing or call it really any industry, that find that salespeople deliver anything to them that's useful. And that's kind of a scary statistic. So it's incumbent on us as we hit number 8 to not only provide them with staffing services, but deliver value add as well, right? And so value add, I mean, how many of you out there today are actually delivering value add services, right? And some of you probably are, some of you probably aren't. But the best way to start that is to ask them, how do you define value add, Mr. Client? Is it's going to be different for every single customer. So understanding what's important to them so you can customize something. But we need to provide something outside of a candidate in addition to that. Right? It could be industry data. It could be salary or skill set information, or marketing info. Another example, it could be educating them on current trends in the workforce. As an example, a lot of our clients right now are struggling with remote work and how to make that work. How many days should someone be in the office? How to manage through that whole process and what it looks like. Another example could be, will they find value in workshops or webinars for their team? Hey, webinars could be anything. It could be helping them to go and interview employees more thoughtfully. It could be helping them with employee onboarding. It could be workshops on new legislation or regulation within a particular industry. So again, this doesn't have to take a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of money. It's something that you really could probably put together fairly quickly and use for multiple customers. But it's, again, define, in their words, what's important to them. What's going to add value to you? Another one you may not have thought of is making peer introductions in the same industry. So let's say it's a client and they're going through an Oracle implementation and they're struggling with that. Well, it's powerful to go and maybe make a peer introduction of another company, CIO, that went through the same implementation to bounce things off of one another. So again, it's all about what they find value in beyond just filling a job. Anybody can fill a job. We've got to offer them, if we want to retain them and keep them loyal, offer them something different, offer them something more. So talk to them and have them define what value add is. Does that make sense? Okay. So number 9. Okay, number 9 sounds pretty commonplace, but live communication, I believe, is still king, right? We all agree we have to, we rely on email, text, LinkedIn, our website, whatever it is, our CRM, but we can't rely only on those pieces, right? Because then we remove that human element and it's all about building relationships. We can have all kinds of technology and staffing, and we do, and we'll have more as time continues, but it still gets down to building relationships and keeping them. So we definitely still need to use that phone, use the video, use in person to build that rapport and discuss content specific to their needs when we're talking to them, right? I mentioned that earlier. Calling up Sally and saying, hey, Sally, how's the weather, provides no value, right? So to provide more value and communicate, we can create As an example, out of office events, and that could be anything from, dinners and lunches to golf outings. It could be virtual events. It could be company sponsored, professional association activities. Have you attended a professional association activity like a HEMA if you have a healthcare customer, or PMI if it's a tech customer? Right? Again, just looking for ways to create a touch point with them, whether it's out of the office, in person, or whether it's a virtual touch. Do they receive our newsletter? Have we highlighted them in an article that our company releases periodically? Have we highlighted them if your company has a podcast and a podcast? So again, it's just various touch points to go and have that outreach. So out of sight isn't out of mind. And then of course, utilizing, especially again, we're all using a CRM. Bullhorn's amazing for this. What's our communication schedule look like, right? Put the actions in the system and makes it simple for us. Work smart, not necessarily so hard that we're beating our head through a wall all the time. Check in with them, cross-sell, remarket, convey your results. We hit that on the slide a moment ago. Oftentimes they don't know our results because we don't talk about them. So again, that last bullet point is about creating opportunity for ourselves through that check-in schedule. But again, it's about building the relationship, right? Out of sight is out of mind in just about anything, but especially with our customers, okay? And then number 10, this one is actually more, I would say, of a mindset around staffing. Right? Looking long-term, I think for many of us out there, we've seen, gosh, 2001, we had the dot-com bust, we've seen the Great Recession, and we've seen COVID. We've watched a lot of things come and go. And those that are in it for the long term, we work through those cycles and we realize that shared risk, shared reward with our clients, right? And building dependability and reliability are critical elements to build confidence with our customers. I think we have to consistently deliver to them and follow through on our actions, right? If we promise something, we actually have to do it. And oftentimes we've watched maybe some of our colleagues fall short of that accidentally, usually. If we promise to get them information, we promise to do something, we have to do it. If we have no intention of doing it, then don't say it. When we make mistakes, and it's going to happen, whether it be you, whether it be sales, whether it be recruiting, the back office, anybody, we're going to make mistakes as an organization. We have to admit them. We have to rectify them and put in process improvements to ensure that the issues don't repeat, right? And follow up to see that they're happy with what we did, of how we corrected the problem. And also along with that, replace plus one. What that means is, so let's say we do make a bad decision and we do make a mistake and we correct that mistake. It's often much more powerful, in addition to correcting the mistake, to give them something that maybe they didn't have. Maybe we offer them, a service for free, or maybe we offer them a couple billable hours for free, or offer them a discount on a fee, just something to show that, hey, we made a mistake, we own it, we corrected it, but we want to go and offset the inconvenience that it cost you, right? By replace plus one. Don't accept work we can't deliver upon. I think staffing companies can be notorious for that. Hey, let's sign on the customer and let's figure out how to go and make it work afterward. Well, sometimes we can do that successfully. Sometimes we can't, right? Sometimes we're going to get caught. So be honest with yourself, be honest with your team. Don't accept work that you feel you can't deliver on. And then finally on this one, showing gratitude and genuine gratitude and decisions based on the long term. I think it's pretty clear when, I think gratitude is a lost art, but it's pretty clear when we're disingenuous. So we really need to show that gratitude to our customers day in and day out, in whatever way that is, through, again, touch points, showing respect, giving them value add, all the things that we talked about today. But again, that gratitude piece has to be there. And I think it's been lost, not only in business, but oftentimes in our daily interactions with people as well. And think all decisions should be made thinking the long term, right? They may not be a client or candidate today, but they will be eventually, and we want to keep them, okay? So to kind of put a cap on a lot of this, just a couple of slides to tie it all together, what we really want to do is try to not only meet their expectations, but again, exceed them. So I think it comes down to, what do the clients expect from us, right? What do they expect from our industry? What precedent precedent are our competitor setting, because our competitors, we've got some good competitors out there. They're all over the place, right? Kind of looking at what they're doing. Are they ahead of us in the curve in something? What should we be doing? How do we meet and exceed the expectations? And then continually evaluating our performance. And we talked about that early. If we don't evaluate, get customer feedback, and look at our metrics, making decisions in a vacuum, and we can oftentimes be wrong. Okay. So I think ultimately clients are going to become loyal when we can do 4 things. They've got to receive value and value add, in our service, and we've got to deliver quantifiable business results for them. Okay. They need to view us as reliable and, again, easy to work with, easy to do business with. Don't make me jump through hoops like I have to do with the cable company or with the airline or when I go to buy a new car, whatever that is. We don't want to be that person because it doesn't build loyalty. They trust, respect, and they like us. We've got a solid relationship. And they also become loyal when they know that we have a genuine interest in their business and we have a genuine interest in their personal success, right? Not only do we care about their business succeeding, in their team, we care about them succeeding. And this has to come from the heart, right? It's like the servant leader, it comes from the heart. You truly have to care because it shines through, whether you care or whether you don't care. It comes through in your interactions with them and ultimately becoming that trusted advisor. And then to put a cap on it, I mentioned before the staffing industry, if you've been in it for any amount of time, you've seen changes that you probably could never have even imagined, right? And I think that it's incumbent on us. We don't know what the future will hold, but in order to retain our clients and keep them loyal, we need to be flexible and adapt. We have to be adaptable to all the changes. We need to continually innovate, right? And evolve and realize that the way we did business 5 years ago may not work today, right? We need to always be looking forward at how do we evolve our business? How do we evolve our teams? How do we evolve what we're doing so we can innovate and stay relevant and gain that client loyalty? As an example, I think all of you know some businesses that have gone by the wayside because they were inefficient and unable to adapt and evolve. I mean, look, for instance, at like retail giants like Sears, right? Unable to adapt, unable to innovate and evolve. And the competition came along and ate their lunch and they really don't exist anymore. 12 stores in the United States. You could point out a myriad of retail stores, a myriad of food service, restaurant chains, any industry, airlines, companies that are case studies that fail to adapt and innovate and evolve, and therefore they no longer exist. So we don't want to be that way. We want to adapt, evolve, and actually continue to build that loyalty with our customers. Okay. So as we stop sharing the screen, anyone have any particular thoughts that they would like to say or any particular questions? Because we're about to hit time. Okay, great. Well, I appreciate everyone being diligent and typing. Yeah, I like Paul's comment as well. Taking care of the employees and they'll take care of the clients. That's a key piece to it, right? We have to make sure everybody's loyal. So appreciate everyone inviting me in and have a great rest of the day. And here's to good fortune in retaining your clients through 2023 and beyond. Take care, everyone. Have a great one. Bye-bye.